Hello there. Y'all caught me typing. I was just going to let everybody in chat know that you are listening to Paranormal Experience. I am Kat Hobson, your host. And I'm so excited because the woman who is joining me tonight is just the most precious thing. She really is. She lives in Texas. She is a prolific author. She has written more haunted books than I. It's not really true. I was going to say more than I've investigated haunted locations, but probably not quite there. So, in fact, I'm going to be doing some because Things Network, which I am the Alabama representative for, is having some people do some investigating, and I'm getting out there. I'm so excited. But this show is not going to be about me tonight. It's going to be about my girlfriend, Teal Gray. Teal is a sacred sites explorer. She travels. I mean, you think I get out and about? This girl goes everywhere. She is from Texas, lives there now. Her book, Haunted Denton, is probably her bestseller to date. She is just so good, y'all. You got to read these books. But she has a children's book out now, and it is called Shoe Cat and Pumpkin Pie. And I can say it like that because that's how she wrote it, I guarantee you. So, without further ado, I am going to bring in my friend Teal Gray. Hey!
Hello, great to be here.
It is
Thanks
great
for
to
having
have
me.
you here.
I always love
Thanks
being
for
on.
I love having you on because, we are just so kismet. It's so cool.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I just I love you because
Love you back.
you've got, you're so calming because sometimes I tend to maybe go off a little bit on a tangent here or there. But when I have something that is puzzling me, you're very good and very gentle about, that head slap cat. You should be paying attention to this. You're looking at that.
Well, we all do that. Yeah,
Yeah, well, we
we all
do.
do that.
But, it's one of the things that I love about you because I do get very excited, right? But I just think that your approach to the paranormal, because you have a different set of gifts from me, and
Yeah.
what you do very well is something that I don't control that well, and I don't really like it sometimes, but
Well,
you
I
do.
understand that. I think you
But you
actually
do.
you do a great job because you have a lot sometimes coming in at you. What we just have to keep
Yeah,
working on is you protecting yourself. So
that's
you push
true.
that back a little because sometimes it's just a lot coming at you in different locations and different situations. But I think you're doing really, really well.
Thank you, because that's high praise from you.
Well, I mean it. I mean it. You really, you
But
you you have really, you're always knowledgeable, but you're really learning how you function within all this paranormal and all these
yeah,
dimensions and all these different things. And your extreme knowledge of all these things really helps you in so many ways because you can draw from your own experience, other people's experiences. When something comes up new, you can kind of discern that, like, "Ooh, what is? Oh, yeah, this is this," and deal with it
yeah.
that way.
Well, and if I don't know what it is, and if I'm having a hard time getting a grasp on it, I have you and Mark
That's
speed
right.
dial.
Speed dial, speed dial.
But it really is. Thank you for that, by the way, because I take that as a huge compliment.
Oh, I mean it. I mean
I
it.
work
I
very
just see you
hard
grow
to.
and grow. You do the work. And that's what people don't do. They want instant gratification. We all do. But there's some things that it's just like, you hone muscles when you're learning to do a sport or play a musical
Yes.
instrument or anything like that. It comes with experience and you're honing those spiritual muscles, so to speak. And I mean, I have seen major growth in you, even in just the last few months, but certainly in the last few years. Just amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, checks in the mail, baby. So just so you know. But
No,
I
it's
mean,
true.
I'm not gonna
It's
belittle
true.
that compliment. I appreciate it.
Oh
You
no,
know,
it's really true. I'm so proud of you.
well, thank you.
Yeah. And you've got to think you need to give yourself credit too, because you move through so many different groups of people in so many different areas
True.
of entities, whether that's cryptoids or,
Yes.
ghost spirits, there's so many different things, and you maneuver through all of it as if you're just effortless, and so that's wonderful.
Well, one of the things that I get about you now, the sacred site traveling,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
I've been twice now to England. I'm going to Ireland next year.
Oh, good.
And I'm so excited.
Just got
But
back.
I'm so jelly. I can't wait to get there.
Huh?
But and I did know that. But
Yeah.
I'm so excited because we went, yeah, we went to Dodino Den the first time, and I couldn't climb down because of my knee,
Um,
and I missed all
yeah.
the carvings and stuff. And which unless you went down there, nobody knew that because nobody from the tour told us anything about it. So,
I right there
or
is one thing I think I'm going to add to one of my books that's coming up is one, just like with your knee, sometimes people are, they have permanent injuries and, things that they have a hard time traveling with, but sometimes it's not permanent. It just happened like your knee or a surgery or something. But traveling through Europe, if you don't really know where you're going and what is handicap accessible, you're
yes,
very unpleasantly surprised because almost
yes,
nothing is. And they do not tell you on these tours what you
there's going to
can
be
and can't access.
267 steps, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and that you won't, if you're not capable for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to see that, and then they should have, I understand having the experience of seeing it firsthand, but for people who can't, they need to have some kind of a book or some kind of something that, they can show those people like, hey, you can't get down there, but here's what's down there. Even if it's
Yes.
something that they don't publicize, because a lot of the sites I know, they won't publicize it because they feel like, well, then you won't come. So that's fine and
Well,
good. Still
yes.
do the no photographs, but have something to where it's interactive for people who can't do that. Also, I was having like we both have the glitchy knees sometimes. And I went to something, it was like such an effort to get up to this. And then all the way up there, and then they're like, oh, well, unless you can do this and this, 12 flips and a sideways kick, you can't get in to see it. And so I went all the way back down. And so it was a waste of a lot of effort that I
Yep.
didn't have to make for something I didn't even get to see. So I think, there needs to be even if I just do a little short booklet of for
Yes.
free, like here's some info you need to know, because and they're just like, they're not even, it's just like, this is just the way it is. So I think, wow, you know,
Well,
um,
a lot of these places, I don't know about other places in Europe, but I do know about Scotland that it's all right to roam. You can go anywhere that's not got somebody
yeah,
living in it, right?
right.
But should something happen to you, that's on you. You don't get to sue
Yeah.
anybody. You don't get to be a whinny whine about anything. You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
buck
Yeah.
up, and if you
You're on your
die,
own.
don't even have your family come at us because you knew,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
which kind of extreme, but not really. But
Yeah.
every single place, I mean, I went to Bannockburn, I went to Menzies, or Mean Gas, as they say there. I went
Hmm.
to, we got to investigate the Writers Museum. We were the first people to ever get to do that.
That's
All of these
great.
places have these little teeny tiny stairs that are
Hmm.
uneven because they're centuries old.
Yeah.
People in hobby toe boots as well as bare feet have gone up and down them for centuries upon centuries and millennia, really.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of like, you better know where you're going. And I think that you doing that is such a brilliant idea.
I mean, I just, through so many years of traveling and through situations where I was in great physical health, and then times that I wasn't, boy, it's so different,
It
and
is
then sometimes you're fine and you injure yourself while you're traveling, so it's just a kind
because
of a,
I'm
I
that
think it would
girl.
be a good need to know, yeah.
Yes.
And
I've
places
never
that you
been a
can
klutz, but all of a
quickly,
sudden,
yeah, I mean, and then some places, they're great as long as you know who to contact. You can rent a mobility scooter or a walker or anything you think you need. You
the
can
first time I
rent
took a
those.
cane, but somebody took it.
Oh
I
yeah,
left
you
it
got to
and
be
somebody
careful with
took
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are gonna
It was
not
so
stick
cute
around.
too. But
Yeah.
it's really astounding because I am dying to go to York with you.
Oh, you should. I'm
I
gonna
should.
take Mark. He wants to
I know
go.
that.
The book Spirited Tales
Yes.
talks about my specific trip to York, that it really involved Mark so much. He felt
Hmm.
so compelled to call me while I was there because spirits were saying she won't talk to us. She's just ignoring us. We're very demanding of her, and yet she's not talking to us. And so
Right.
he came through and called me, and I was like, he knew everything, as because he can bilocate and he can do all these things. So but it was a really interesting things. And the round um Ouija board that was on the bottom part of a table that was beside my bed, I hadn't even seen it. I didn't even pay attention to it. But until the end, and he was like, "Why do I keep dreaming?" And they're showing me Ouija boards, but not so much just that, just a communication board, which he created this whole communication board just from that trip. And I said, "Oh, it's round. It's right here." And I showed him a picture, and he's like, "Things you could have told me, a week ago." But yeah, I didn't. I was like, "Sorry, I didn't
He's
even know."
sassy too, right?
He's sassy,
I
and
love
so
him.
we're gonna go back. But he has made these really amazing boards that are communication boards. They're they're totally different. They're not a Ouija board, but they're done in the round, and it
Hmm.
makes it easier for spirits to communicate because these spirits were telling him what they wanted to say, and it was so difficult for them to do some of this. So he's
What
created a
part?
whole other thing out of that.
What part made it difficult for them?
I think the link, some of them, the energy that they have to come up with to communicate, and the communicator, communicatee, however you want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's how they may be saying it the way they're trying to get it through, and sometimes it's very not just sometimes it's a different language, but sometimes it's just dialect, right? A thick Scottish accent or something like that, or Irish, anything, versus what like Mark from Texas and Tennessee is saying, and then to
Yeah.
them vice
Well, see,
versa.
I understand him fluently, so.
Yeah, I do too. But I think it's just like it just kind of made it easier, and certain types of murder, instead of having to go spell out these things and spell out timelines and spell out stuff, he created one that's like different types, of did you dying naturally or being murdered or drowning or all these different things. And it's really very intricate what he's done. But they would wake him up. He didn't get sleep for hardly months. It was just he was like, "Oh, Teal, your sister's crazy," and they wake me up, and until he would do what they wanted, they wouldn't leave him alone. And
Yeah.
so he learned, like, okay, I'm gonna do what you want. But then he loved it. Then he loved the communication. But I'm gonna take him back where it all started, which was oh gosh, over 650-year-old 3-story house, and very haunted. But so yeah, you'll have to come. You'll have to come. We'll
It's the
just
only
make a
place
thing
you've
of it.
run from, isn't it?
I didn't run, but I did power walk. I tell you what, because I kept thinking the sound was so loud that I really thought somebody had broken in because the
Yes.
boots were so heavy on it. And I was like, I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff and I've interacted with demons and everything else in the world. But this was really, I kept just my rational mind, which is always first. I never think it's Aunt Tilly. I always am like, who broke in, or is it a
Yeah.
raccoon or whatever? I just, let's rule all that out first. I really kept thinking somebody had broken in. It was such a large space, right? And actually, it's two houses rented together, two big houses that I rented together that are joined by this great hall. So it was a big expanse, and I was there by myself because I was mouthy and said, everybody was like, "Are you sure you want to stay here alone? The weather's terrible. We're in the worst flood they've had in over 25 years here." And I'm like, please, this is nothing.
I
And
got this.
yeah, I got this. And I did. So yeah, I didn't run, but I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to stay for this. So I like power walked down those stairs and went out. And it was the time of year when starts getting dark at 3:30, in the afternoon. So it's such a weird situation. But I was like, yeah, no. And I checked everything. I did, even though I was like, I don't want to do this. I went in every room in both those houses upstairs. I looked in closets, looked everywhere. There was nobody there. And finally, the thing that got me was not just the boots coming down the stairs in such a heavy way, but it was at the same time when a disconnected phone, literally, it wasn't plugged in, rang. And because I, again, said, sassy, look, if you're trying to get my attention, why don't you say something? What is all this? You pulling off the covers at night, knocking on the windows, you're doing all this crazy B movie stuff. And, for days,
pick up the phone and call.
Just say something to me. The phone rings. And I thought, no, come on. If somebody told me this, I'd be like, this is so much BS, please. But the phone rang. And of course, I'm looking at the cord on the floor. I know it's not connected, but I answered the phone. I'm like, hello?
Did they answer you?
I answered, yeah. I mean, they're like, oh, you want to talk? Okay. Come on. And so I answered phone, hello. And it's like, it was so loud and it sounded like 1,000 voices at once. And I was like, nope. And so I hung up the phone, and at the same time, the boots started running down from the third floor to the second, which is where I was on. I mean, like, boom, boom, boom. I guess I think that I annoyed them, right?
You offended them.
And so they're like, you want to know we're here? Here we are. So I did power walk right down the last flight of stairs and on out. And it's where I stayed. It's the wall around it is remaining old Roman wall. So there's so many layers of history, and the big old key they handed me, I can still feel the weight of that key. It was the biggest, heavy, metal key ever. And, you put it in the gate. And as soon as you get out, I mean, people looked at me. I must have had a startled look on my face. And also I think they're like, oh my God, the giant wall moves. It's just a big gate in the wall. So they're like, oh, but you're walking out into a very busy street because it's in the shambles, there in York. It's a very famous road. And so lots of people day and night are taking pictures, and there's restaurants and pubs, as they say. And so I walk out and it's just like, woo, busy world. But on the other side of that gate was a whole nother something going on. So,
a whole nother busy world.
Another busy world. So you'll have to join us.
Is it going to be in that house?
Yes, I'm going to get the same two houses together again.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So I know he'd love having you too. So that'll be good. We'll go check out York again.
One of the things that's my favorite thing out of many about Mark is his approach to the paranormal.
Yeah.
Very much like you, but with a different sassiness. Okay.
He does have a different one. Yeah.
And you're both sassy. But he is just
sass.
I know, right? But he is just like, oh, I know you don't think that you're going to be doing this with me sitting here. Yeah. And I'm like, don't piss off the ghost. He's here because he killed someone. He doesn't care.
He doesn't care at all. No, he doesn't care at all.
Have you watched him channel?
Oh, yeah. I've been right there with him. And in fact, he was doing channeling and automatic writing when he came to Gainesville. My great uncle was in the biggest hanging ever that happened in Gainesville. My grandfather was a freedom fighter for the rights of people, for slaves and things. And so because of that, it wasn't popular. And so they would, people who had slaves or wanted to have that lifestyle did not like my family, my great grandfather, fighting for their rights, and then his family who joined that. So they would get terrorized, but anyway, he was part of that hanging group of people. And they wanted his land, and they wanted him to stop being helpful to the slaves. And so they hung him. So in Gainesville, if you look at it, it's a great Gainesville hanging.
I'm writing that
It's
down.
huge. It's
So,
huge in
yes, I
history,
am
right?
writing.
Huge in history. And
Gainesville is in Florida?
Gainesville, Texas.
Okay.
And so he came down for an event, and we went from this event space, where we did lectures, and I did, like a gallery reading and stuff. And I invited him up to help, come on, you want to do the gallery too, which is also unusual because people don't usually do that. But I, like, why not? I could tell he was real and good, and so I invited him up. So we just became little buddies after that. And but anyway, in the park that night, where they did the hangings, we actually got to the spot where they were hung, and right over beside us was the stream, the little bridge and stream where bodies laid, because they wouldn't let the people. They had people protecting, keeping the families from coming to get the bodies of the people that they hung or that they beat to death,
wrong.
or that were not quite dead. So you had a lot of tragedy and pain and misery all around in that park and in that stream. And so Mark was like, this is the perfect place. I'm going to do my automatic writing and channeling. And so I was the page turner. He's like, you can turn the page, like, don't talk to me, don't touch me. But as you see, like, it's too much, and then just move the page, change the page. And so I would do that. But it was really fascinating because he didn't have any knowledge about the details of that. But they were all coming out through this writing and his channeling. And he sent more than a handful of people running and screaming, because some of them were there to see if their ancestors would come through, and they did. And to the right people. He didn't know who was who. I didn't either. These were just, strangers. And they were so overcome with the fact that he was so spot on with what he was bringing up and details. They would run off and screaming, running off, and then a little bit later they would come back. And this one lady, she ran off and screamed like 3 or 4 times. And every time she'd come back, like, this is the most amazing. They kept coming back because it was the most amazing thing. They didn't want to miss anything else, but then they would get overwhelmed, and then they would run off screaming. And it was quite the night. So yeah, I have been present.
Well, I didn't. That was my first time to be with someone who was actually channeling.
Yeah.
Like the real deal.
Where were you, at a house, or?
We had a friend over in Pensacola who had bought a little, well, it wasn't even a row house, but there were 4 houses on this property. They were ancient houses. They were being redone. It's over by Joe Patty's, which if you go to Pensacola, he will show you that, I'm sure. But it was, I go through that area a lot, and what was there still recognizes when I go through. Usually I'm through before it knows I'm there.
Wow.
But I can feel, because I can feel the head turn, or I can feel the recognition. But it was really interesting because my friends had bought this house. They were renovating it. Their dog was a friend of my dog, Kylie. We were dog park people. And
renovations kick it up,
They do. And this was the 4th house to be, touched. And one of the houses was getting so much activity that they were afraid their dog was dying.
Oh.
And it was that heavy. And the other one, the person was just not in a healthy place for himself. So he didn't recognize that he was being oppressed, and nobody, Mark tried to handle that as much as he could without being interfering. But we were, these people's dog, Bo, friendliest dog you'll ever know. He is, I think, I'm going to get this wrong, I think he's a German short hair. but
Okay.
he's just adorable, and my dogs loved him. So we became friends.
Yeah.
And so Bo would not even get out of the truck with David. He was
Um,
just like, nope, I'm not going to that house.
no. Yeah.
Not
Thank you.
even.
Thank you for the invitation, but I think I'll stay right here.
And so David was like, are you going to be down here anytime soon? And I'm like, probably. Why? I'm thinking we're going fishing. We're going to boat over to the island. We're going to do something fun. He was like, I got a problem. And I was like, oh, well, tell me about it. So he did. And I'm like, oh, we're going to need Mark. Because
Yeah.
I knew when I walked in the house,
You can
I
feel
was
it.
like, oh, this is not Cat.
Mhm.
This needs to be a little stronger than Cat.
Yeah.
Because what it was powerful, is what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So I just was like, and not messed with. It had just been living in that house that had been dilapidated and abandoned and nobody doing anything with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it had just had the run of everything.
That's
He
what they
had just
love.
had the run. Yeah. And so I called Mark and I was like, what do you think, dude? And, let's do this. And my friend Lori from Ohio had come down. She was with me. And,
He likes her a lot.
well, she just adores him too. I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't, though,
Well,
seriously?
yeah. Sure enough. Sure enough.
He is one of the nicest men I've ever
He
met.
is. He's very
And
kind.
he is very kind.
But if you need getting got, he'll get you.
He will get you.
He will get you.
I
Yeah.
would not. I would not try to be that person with him.
You don't. You don't want to
Ever.
do that. You don't want
Ever.
to do that. Mm-mm.
But he walked in the door. Lori and I had gone the night before when David was showing us, how to turn the lights on, how to do this, that, and the other. And we went into the house of the people whose dog was being affected, and that dog would not get off the bed. It was dying. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just not
Well, they were
even.
just feeding off of it.
Yeah, yeah. And so when got Mark, went to the house, and he was like, "Oh, well." I'm like, "I know, right? What the hell is this?"
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we went to the other people's house and first before we did anything in the empty house, and
Mhm.
Mark was just kind of like, "Oh, well, we need this to happen, and we need that to happen," and so they did it. And 30 minutes to an hour that we were in their tops, that dog had jumped up off the bed in the front room, had come down the hall, and was in the people's bedroom that he would not sleep in.
Yeah.
And he was just walking all over the spot that they said that he was afraid of. He was
See?
just stomping it. He was
He will.
just
That's
kicking
the
its
thing, and
butt.
especially animals and children, he will go nuts and fix that immediately. So yeah, he just freed it from its bonds. That's great.
Well, the
Yeah.
dog,
But
he,
it
he
is
freed the
amazing to
dog.
see. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
But the other house still had people in it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the spirit, that's where he lived.
Hmm.
And I did not know all of Mark's abilities prior to that experience.
Oh yeah, he's got quite a laundry list. Yeah.
I probably still don't know all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. But, yeah, he just went, he was like, do you want to investigate or do you want to talk to him? I was like, yes, please, both. So
Can have
Mark
both,
was
too.
like, the places that Lori and I the night before had felt that things were happening
Mm-hmm.
were the places that Mark said, oh yeah, he's here. There's a person here. Da 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 da. And Lori's like, yes. So, validation. And Mark said, well, do you want to talk to him? I was like, well, if I can, right? So he sat in the chair. He started channeling. Everything about him changed. His facial structure changed. His
Yeah,
posture
you can
changed. His
even
hair
sometimes,
changed.
yeah, you can sometimes even see the actual face of somebody else sort of come over him like a clear mask, if you
Mm-hmm.
will.
And
Yeah.
that was the first time I'd ever seen that happen.
Mhm.
And I was
That's
like,
yeah, and that can be disconcerting if you're not used to that.
it was very disconcerting because
Yeah.
I realized about, midway through, he didn't tell us how to bring him out of this.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And, well, that's because he doesn't need anybody to bring him out of that.
Yeah,
He
and
is in
I
full
think he's
control.
afraid that
But,
you might even disrupt his coming back,
yes,
without meaning to.
absolutely.
So he's always
So,
like, just don't touch me, don't do anything, just leave me alone.
and
Okay.
I'm just sitting there going, and I looked over at Lori. I'm like, "You're seeing this, right? You're seeing this, right?" And the guy, you know, the guy, the guy through him actually said, "And that picture does not look anything like me." And I was like, "What picture?" He's like, "In the post office on the wall. It doesn't look anything like me. I am not black." And I was like,
Well,
"Why are
there
you
you
on the
go.
post office wall, bud?"
Hmm.
you know,
You
didn't
know,
want
I may have done something.
he didn't want to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and Mark is just like, because he's like got the
The
hanging
stuff on it.
hair,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, you are so not, you are so not Mark.
No.
And so, for those who don't know, we are talking about Mark Fultz, who
Yeah.
is just a brilliant radio host. He's
Hmm.
not doing a show right now because he's finishing up his books and
Yeah.
doing video streams for his mean old grandma's cookbook.
It's going to
And
be so great. I
when
can't
it
wait for
comes
that to
out, you're
come
going to
out.
have to go
Hmm.
find it because
Yes.
the man is prolific. He might
Yes.
he might compete with you for some of that, but he
Yeah.
is hands down. That was the most interesting experience I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's one thing where we very much differ. He allows people. I'm the most reluctant medium. I mean, I'm for most of my life
Yeah,
was not a medium. I was like, nope, nope. But I still keep everybody way arm's length or more, right? I mean, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I can, contact people, as relatives or their relatives come through, and I'll say, hey, this. So it's the same, very much spot on. People are shocked or whatever, but they never come near me. Like I keep
right.
them away. Where Mark lets them literally come in him, like he channels them literally, and I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. So we're
Well,
very different that way. We get the same results, but not the same way.
very strange to watch.
Yeah, I would. Why would you ever? No, thank you. No.
Well, the one thing that I was concerned about, and you know, he told me I was mistaken, but that it wasn't really going to happen. What if you ever had someone that was strong enough and didn't want to leave?
Well, and that does happen. That's why, I mean, I've always, of course, I've always just been scared of possessions. I don't, even before I even really understood it, like even as a kid, I was like, and it does happen. It absolutely does happen. And that's a whole nother world, and you have to get, help, and hopefully it works out. A lot of times, even if it works out, the people don't make it through it. The Catholic Church really does have to get involved. I'm sorry. I know there's people that feel like they can handle that without having that
Not if it's
background,
the right
but
thing.
it's not the same. Not if it's a true possession. That's you can also make it way worse, because if you don't know what language they're talking in, or you don't know how you're handling it. Just from a religious standpoint, people's theologies and backgrounds are different. So something that's not offensive in your religion might be the biggest taboo ever in somebody else's. And so you get these conflicts going on. So layers of problems that are going on, while in fact you're trying to help somebody and relieve the situation. It can be compounded greatly. So it's not something that people should get involved in unless that is what they do. I
I
really don't think
agree.
so. But yeah, no, it can happen. I do think it's very rare. I think there are some things that are some people have emotional distresses that are triggered by certain things, and sometimes those have to be helped with uh, counseling or even medications or something. But sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it really is a spiritual intervention that's needed. But again, you just have to be really careful about that. Something I want nothing to do with. Thank you. No.
Me too.
Call
You know,
Mark, because
I
he's
was,
all for it. I'm like, not, no, don't, no.
you know, and I'm not going to
But
lie.
that's not my area. I would just make anything worse, even if I tried to bless you or help you. It's going to make them mad,
Yeah.
and they're going to take it out on you. So, I mean, like you said, you got to know what's your area and what is not. And if it's not, then just, go to an expert.
And don't be afraid to. But
No,
do
fear, they
research to
play
make
on
sure that
fear
your
a lot.
research,
Yeah,
make sure
you
that
want
your
to,
expert is really an expert
right, because
and not a
ego
self
is different
proclaimed.
than actual credentials.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yes.
But yeah, pretty much Mark can take care of anything other than something like that.
Well, what do you said that you were a reluctant medium,
Yes.
and, I don't, as a rule, see. I, I will catch glimpses or whatever, but as a rule, I don't see. And I'm fine with that.
Like,
I'm
good.
perfectly fine with that. But,
Yeah.
unless I ask to, and I've only
Yeah.
done that once.
Yeah.
But it was, and I probably won't ever do that again. I don't foresee being in a situation where I have a need to do that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the whole thing for me is that if Mark had not been there, there would have been, you know, I would never have known the situation that those people were dealing with.
And the
And
dog probably wouldn't have lived and so many things, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And he left, tar water with them, Florida
Mm-hmm.
water with them,
Mm-hmm.
and told them where to get it and to make sure that they continue to do that.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't going to go all the way away because the young man that lived in one of the other houses had an addiction issue.
Right.
And he was just feeding that, just
Mm-hmm.
feeding that.
Yeah.
So, you have to recognize.
It's multifaceted. That's the thing. It sometimes it really does sometimes take a team of different people to handle different layers of different things that are interconnected. They don't have to be in the same house or building or whatever, but just the area. Sometimes it's somebody who works in a historic haunted place will have problems and things, different stuff. It goes home with them, or it's, you know what I'm saying? It's
I
attached
do.
itself some way. It's just really something that has to have a little detective work with it most of the time. I mean, it really is
Yes.
very layered. I think I look at everything like an onion, because even if it's a simple case, it's still got layers. It's still got those layers with it, so you have to really look at that and be careful that, you're not just going in there to have some fun and investigate something and find out a cool backstory. You might be affecting people and animals' lives, so you want to
Well,
go in with some respect and caution.
kind of you are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're walking into a situation, and I know you've got a lot more experience with seeing these things than I do, of people who go in thinking, got this, got my sage, got my holy
That
water,
that
got
really
my
worries me
cross.
when somebody's like, "Oh, I got it," and it's like, ooh.
But do
Every
you now?
time they're boastful like that. I mean,
But
it's one thing to be confident, and you need to be confident. Otherwise, don't. I mean, they're going to get you. But there's a difference in confidence and
rub it out.
antagonizing things,
Yeah.
and going in like a cowboy, and then finding out, no,
That horse
that's
bucks.
that person bucks and bites, and they usually scream and run, you know. Um,
Or
and
power
it's
walk.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
or power
teasing.
walk at the very least. Yeah, no. But it's like, yeah, because you're not supposed to, like, I just am like, no, I'm not going to interact. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But then there comes a point when it's like, I mean, you got to get out of here. I wasn't sure with that many different entities coming together and in
Right.
such a powerful way. Like, I wasn't too sure what was going to happen. So I didn't want to write another bad B movie script. So I was like, no, 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 nope, nope.
Well, with you starring, it would not have been a bad one. But I am always I'm really so astounded by you. I respect
Oh,
you so much because
well, thank you.
you're you're one of the most genuine women I know, and
Oh,
we
thank
know that
you.
that's really a gift that you
I
give other
appreciate that.
people. And you're
Thank you.
also so gifted in your own right that it's you don't just experience spirits, you experience a lot of different things.
Different entities. Yeah.
And
Yay.
go team.
I'm like, no. I mean, friends laugh at me. You have giggled at me too. I got to throw
I
you in
do
that
giggle
pot
at you sometimes.
because I'm like, oh, the next property I buy is not going to be haunted. It's just going to be a regular house. And y'all all just laugh and laugh and laugh. I
Because
can
it
have a
loves
dream.
you.
I can have a dream.
Have you ever had a non-haunted house still?
No, no.
It's
No, but it's not,
because
sometimes I think it is me and things that, come in are whether they've known me for a while or whether they're new and like, oh, can you help me kind of thing. But a lot of times the place just already has something, whether it's been awake or interactive with who's been there before or not. I mean, you can't say because look at some famous, like one of the most famous houses is the Amityville house, right?
right,
That big story. And I met, the family, one of the guys who was part of one of the families that moved in later. They had a horrible experience with that. But then there's families that have lived there after that who are like, I don't even know what any of this is. Was that a fiction? Because we just plant flowers and go to the boat dock. Like nothing happens. Like literally nothing. So I don't know if, there are some people who I think are just completely tuned out. They don't, one, they don't believe in it. And maybe that's something that even when you see things, people who are non-believers sometimes see things and go, oh, well, maybe there is something to this. But I don't know if it's just that maybe they're not meant to interact with it. Maybe there's nothing that their interaction is going to change or do. And so there's no point in it. And so it doesn't happen. I don't know, because I sometimes think that there are reasons, whether, whether it's terrifying or whatever, there's a reason to that journey, whether that is to help a spirit or release them from some kind of bond, just like Mark did with the animal and that house kind of situation. Or is it something that you need to grow in so that later you could help somebody? Or I don't know. There's just a million different facets to things. So I don't know, but I do know that there are houses that sometimes are really, really, tragic houses, but for a lot of people, they're fine. And then there's places that are absolutely fine and have never had a problem, and all of a sudden, bam,
yeah.
and is that like something just walked in or awoke, from a long time, or did a person coming in there have something that triggered something, and here we go.
Yeah.
It could be 1,000 different things.
I've often thought that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've often thought that, spirits progress. Spirits will come back around
Yeah.
as you were,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm right about that. I'm
Yeah.
right about that.
Yeah.
So, if you have somebody who was there a generation ago, a couple of generations ago, who passed but they weren't through yet,
Yeah.
then do they come back to the same people or the same place?
Well, they could. Some people really just are attached to a place or a land. Maybe the house didn't even exist there, but they worked that land, or maybe there was a house there that they
Yeah.
loved, or a hut, or they just passed through on a wagon train. There's so many things, layers to it. And sometimes this is, I think, not as rare. I've kind of figured out it's not as rare as I once thought it was. Sometimes spirits interact with people that weren't around before, that are part of their soul tribe, that they know in let's say heaven or in
Right.
other dimensions, but they are not on this plane together now. So they would have been ancestors, and or maybe they were a soulmate, or and or whatever the and or you want to add in is. And people coming into a space where they now can interact with them, things occur.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, okay. So sometimes it's scary, but then you realize they're not there to harm you. They're trying to just talk to you, or they're trying to let you know they exist. And it's because they're excited sometimes that, oh gosh, Kat, I haven't seen you in, you know, excuse me, hundreds of years. Here you are.
Well, I feel like I've had an experience similar to that.
Excuse me.
And it was, I found it very disconcerting because I was at a public investigation
Mm-hmm.
and I, I'm just wandering through. I'm not having any, big psychic moments or anything. I'm just there for go through this haunted place, you
Right.
know. And
Sometimes
actually,
you're there for the history,
well,
experience the history.
the first time I went through this house, it was just on one of the, you know, walking tours,
Mm-hmm.
the evening tours. And so I got there early because I wasn't sure how far from my hotel it was going to be and stuff, and I was by myself. And there was a guy in the garden with a dog.
Oh,
Well, that's my kryptonite, right?
yeah.
So I sit down and I'm talking to this guy, and his dog reacted to me. I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, it's okay. Why, why is
Okay.
dogs don't do
Yeah.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was like, I thought you said you were a dog person. I said, I am. I have 4. They
Yeah.
all love me. And this one loves me too, but something just happened,
Something
'cause it's
was
like,
with you or around you.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
the guy was just like very twitchy and stuff. And I'm like, I really am okay. I'm sorry that your dog reacted, but if you'll let me put my hand back out, I think we'll be fine. And he was like, she'll bite you. I said, she's not going to bite me. So I just was talking and I put my hand out and she came back to me and we were fine. And I was like, why are you here? Because I know he wasn't taking a dog in the house, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, this is my house. I was like, really? It's a beautiful home. And, he was like, well, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm here to tour it. I'm doing the walking tour. And he's like, well, are you a ghost hunter? I said, I am. I was like,
Oh,
it's okay. I'm not
yeah.
here to be, woo.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that to Mark. But it was so funny because this guy was really, freaking on me. So I just kind of stumbled away, calmly leaned down out. And so the whole way through that house, not a thing.
Wow.
Not a thing. So I got to the end of the night and I'm in the downstairs in the basement where they've got all these little nooks and crannies and stuff. And there's stuff there. I'm like, oh, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So probably that's who the dog didn't like, But 3 years later, I think it was 3 years, Lori and I go back there because Savannah Paranormal is doing a tour,
Mm-hmm.
an event. We didn't get anything in the house.
Wow.
We got everything in the carriage house.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
there were children in there. There was we walked into a room, we caught somebody in the closet, apparently,
Oh, wow.
because
Yeah.
the air was hot,
Uh-huh.
hotter than anywhere else. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like almost nodding out, you know how you get.
Yeah.
And I saw this little scurrying shadow. It was long. scurrying shadow that came out of the closet and shot around the door back out of the room. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you saw that, right? She's like, yep. I'm like, all right. And when we left, she was using her SLS, and there was a kid holding my hand as we were walking out of the
Oh,
room.
wow.
And
Oh.
so I was like, all right. So, like the carriage house, not so much the house. This is
Yeah.
great. But,
Yeah.
it was one of those things that whatever was in that house was not for me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
didn't want me in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the carriage house basically put me to sleep and made me comfy.
Yeah.
So,
I tell you, that is a funny thing that you had that reaction because some of the worst places or very haunted places, like if I've spent the night, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I was just all night, something was that or this or that. And I'm like, oh gosh, man, I slept great. I'll sleep great in
I
these
sleep great in haunted
terrible
places.
houses, so maybe I do need a little bit of horror to help me sleep. Maybe I don't know any difference. Like people who live, in the right in a busy part of New York or something, they're used to the noise and they move to the country and they're like, I can't sleep.
Cannot.
It's too quiet. Yeah.
Mm-mm. That's why
But
God made noise machines.
yeah, right. It's like, please
But,
make it go.
that's interesting, though, because you do live in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like not, maybe less than 10 minutes from, you start getting to the busy part of town, but I'm out enough to where this property was actually one of the first originally on this land. There was a big old, 2-story plus like 2.5-story old farmhouse, big white farmhouse, and it burnt to the ground. And but there was a stone. They did all this road work, which was kind of awful. They've taken a lot of my land for road work. When I moved here, it was a 2-lane road. Now it's 6 lanes with a turn lane, right? So there's 7 lanes of that. And then they took more land recently, putting in sidewalks and everything like that. So and bike lanes. So it's gotten bigger. But there was a little white little place stone, and then there was another little marker there. And when I first bought it, I was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, that's because this was, the first house and this kind of thing. And I thought, oh, well, that's cool. So it's had a lot of, and then there's, was a seasonal, you can still see the creek bed behind. And when it's a lot of rain or, whatever, it turns into a stream, right? But it used to be part of the Goodnight Loving Trail for wagon trains that were moving through, and then there's a big fork of the river for the Louisville Lake. I'm not in Louisville, I'm in Denton, but Louisville Lake wraps around. And so on the one end, there's Louisville Lake, it wraps around. So I'm right over just the bridge. Let's see, it'd be one, two houses, then a street, and then across the street is the start where you go over the bridge. On one side is a big wildlife refuge. And on my side, you go over the bridge and it's the lake, right? So there's, of course, stories of, the Lady of the Lake. And
Yeah.
one thing, though, there was a panther. How it got there, I don't know. But it was a panther, and it had been
Was it
seen many
black?
times. Yes. Mm-hmm. It had been seen many times, and they screamed, and it sounds
They
like
do.
a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and there's alligators there. And they put out a notice not too long ago, and people are like, there can't be alligators. And I was like, there's alligators in Louisville Lake. It wraps around, and they've seen like half a dozen of them, So you just have to, you never know what's out there. And I've had bobcats, on the land. I've had little foxes. I even had, which I didn't know was possible, but it was there and seen by enough people. Unless it was a ghost honey badger, it was a live honey badger, but it was
Get
alive.
out.
It was alive. No, I didn't even know. I don't know if it was like some rare, situation animal, somebody. I've never heard of a pet honey badger, and this one was wild and mean. But I got my dogs, who were big, protection dogs. They weren't scared of anything. In fact, they were dangerous dogs. But they came running from something. I was like, what went in the bushes there? So I'm so smart, because now I'm like getting my face really close to the bush that's shaking, and my dogs guard dogs are running past me to go in the house. And so I'm like, what is that? And all of a sudden, this huge, this snout comes through at me. And I'm like, I thought, I don't know what that is. Like, because I know a lot of animals, but I was like, I don't know what that is, but it's a lot of teeth and it's very violent. It's very crazy looking. And so I was slowly back in. And then when I got close enough, I ran and shut the door. But that was that darn honey badger. But,
Oh my gosh.
you would see it on the far end of the property. But I don't know. That's the weirdest one for me because I just didn't even know they were around here. I've never heard of that before, but other people saw it. And neighbors were like, that's a honey badger out there. And then of course, you have armadillos, you have possums, you have raccoons, you have wild hogs.
They are so dangerous.
You gotta. Listen. Let me
oh my God!
I may have told you this story before, but not here. But when I was dating a wealthy young man, his family had a huge ranch on the border of Mexico and in Texas, but it was close, right? And so they had horses and whatever. His brother, he was going to ride his motorcycle. And I was like, great, he had a new motorcycle. And he's like, you can ride a horse if you want to. And his brother really wanted to go and ride a horse, but he didn't know how to ride a horse. And I said, well, just get on with me. Because I didn't know we were going to do anything other than just kind of trot around, just kind of roam around. I didn't expect to have a full-blown Wild West show coming back home, right? So he's on with me, and I'm like, see, it's okay. We're going to go really slow. We're going to go really slow. I'm going to walk. I'm not even going to trot this horse. And he's like, great, good, okay. So we're like, I think he was a couple of years. He's probably 14, 15. I was 16, and so anyway, we were young. And so we get out and we hear, something coming. I was like, what is that? And I said, do you know this land? He goes, no, it's my grandparents' place. But he's like, it's been so long since I've been out here. I said, you don't know what's out here with us? And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, don't you know the wildlife? And he's like, why would I know the wildlife? And I was like, oh my God. I said, well, something's coming. That's not a deer. And oh my gosh, these big wild boar they're coming for us. And I just told his brother, I was like, hang on for your dear life. And I'm going to hold on to this horse in the saddle. We're not going on. This horse is about to go nuts, but don't let go for anything. Hold on to me, hold on to everything, right? And so I take off flat running with this horse. These boar are coming in a pack at us. Of course, the other guy, the boyfriend's on his motorcycle, out. But they're coming fast. They're faster than people think, right?
They are,
and
yes.
We just got, and this place was well guarded, these people, because they were wealthy. So they had ranch workers, they had guns and different things with these ranch workers. And so they opened these big gates that I didn't see before because this was just like another way we were going in. It's not the way we came out. And they opened these gates and we go through just like at a flat, terrifying run, and they close the gates and start shooting to get these hogs back. And some of the hogs hit the gate. That's how close they were to us. And they were, like, oh my gosh, you guys, they will eat you. They
will eat you.
Like, will they? I didn't know enough.
Yes.
I was too young and ignorant, which was probably to my benefit at the time.
Well, yeah, because otherwise...
I knew that they would hurt you, but I didn't really think about it. And they're like, they will get you down and eat you. That's a big pack of them. Of course it was. They had been free out, they're free out there. So they had several, they had hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. So, and it was a beautiful place though. I would just remember also out the kitchen, out the house doors, they had this huge lemon tree and big old lemons. You could pick them and go make fresh lemonade and stuff. It was a beautiful place. But I could then see I see why there's big gates everywhere, big walls, big gates. And that's why. But he had no idea what was out there. But you do need to know, even when you're going on vacation, another tip for traveling, even if it's not for paranormal stuff, just know the wildlife. And also, Mark was telling me, be careful when you're doing your investigation coming up in the graveyards because there's all these different spiders. He ran into he was like, he was going to sit down, and then he saw underneath that there was big, those little white balls of all the spider eggs and stuff. and there was a big, like, he said it wasn't a black widow. It's something that they call where he's at a brown widow, but
Yeah.
it was
It's a
poisonous.
brown
So anyway,
recluse.
yeah, a brown recluse. That's what he was probably trying to say. And so I was like, okay, but you have to know, like, anything from that small to snakes, because around here, I mean, they've caught the landscapers. Oh, it's been a few years back, but there was a bunch of vipers in one area, one corner of the land, and there's been, my neighbor had trouble with copperheads, and we've had big snakes, but this was a rat snake, but it's about 8 feet long, go through
Big enough.
the backland. It startles you because you don't know it's just a rat snake,
No, you
when you see
don't.
it. But yeah, there's been all kinds of crazy animals and things through here, but yeah, you just got to know what's going on.
Well, I do. I go to the Thomas Divide out in Cherokee to
Mm-hmm.
to experience the Thomas Divide lights, and it's like a little pet research project of mine, right? So I was going up there one night because you're not supposed to go at night, but
Right. So that's
I'm
when Kat goes,
yeah,
don't come
but
here at night, Kat. Oh, well, I'll be there at 12:30.
well, not that late.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was driving up, I got the lights in my headlight, the eyes in my headlights, and I'm like, oh, look, there's a great big and bunch of littles, and it was a sow boar with
Wow.
with her litter of like
Uh-huh.
11 little boars, right?
Wow. She needed
They
food
weren't
for her babies.
they were not tiny. They
Yeah.
were adolescent, I guess. But
Yeah.
I was just like,
Nope.
no, not
Nope.
getting out of my car,
No, you
not
got to
doing
watch it. I
anything.
mean, yeah, no,
And
dangerous.
people laugh because I go up there and I video from my car.
Mm-hmm.
I do not get out of my car. I do not turn my car off, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't get
Because
stuck.
no,
No.
and I'm ever diligent about what's around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm always,
And that's smart. That's just smart. You want to
well,
do
I'm
that. And
always
I
by
tell people,
myself.
I think you've read that in several of the books. I've been like,
Yes,
please, please be
be
careful of what's
intelligent.
around you. Not just paranormal stuff. There's
No,
so many people that they don't have your best interest at heart. You got to really be careful where you're at. Even going through cemeteries, people break in mausoleums and are in there. I mean, there's
yes,
a lot of stuff that goes on. So you really have to be careful. But I was just, you saying that and seeing all the eyes reminds me of, I've seen them, a number of times, but I've never had a real problem with them. Is we get a lot of coyote out
yeah,
here,
we have
and
some.
yeah, and they're not, of course, usually there's not supposed to be out during the daytime, but you will see them now sometimes in the daytime. I think it's because the more growth around, their habitat gets smaller,
Yes.
and some of them probably are not well. I hope they don't have rabies, but I'm just saying, you just don't know.
Well,
You
you
have to be
don't know, and
careful.
coyotes are prone to rabies because they eat
Yeah,
everything.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. So you don't know. But yeah, you got to be careful just of the animals and everything else. So if people, if you see um, abandoned houses and buildings or something, and sometimes, listen, I'm the first one that wants to take a good picture, a good photo, but really do kind of stop and think, like, could there be what season is it? What time of year is it? Is it cold enough the snakes probably aren't a problem? Okay, but please try not to be alone. If you're alone, maybe like you, get as close as you can with your car and get as good a shot as you can. You don't know who's in that building,
You don't.
or if there's nothing, there's no threat to you like that, but the building is not safe, and maybe you step on the wrong board and that moves a wall and the
Yeah.
roof comes down on you. I mean, nobody's going to know where you're at unless you let them know. Like, I'm going to be exploring out here, but just, kind of have that little
Yeah.
network of safety.
Well, and a lot of times I don't know I'm going to be somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's a surprise, but you could
David's
say,
fine. Yeah.
hey, I didn't know I was going to run into this, but this is so interesting. I'm here. Or here's a pin. Like, if you don't know exactly where you are, there's no street signs, you can drop a pin, as they say, on your phone and let somebody know where you're at.
I didn't know you could do that.
You can do that. I'll teach you. Yeah, it's on maps, and you can say, I'm at this you can just drop what they call dropping a pin, and it
Okay.
sends your location to somebody.
I'm writing dropping a pin so that we can talk about
Dropping a
that later.
pin on Google Maps. Google Maps, you can drop a pin. And if you're like wanting specific directions for that, just go in a search and say, how do I drop a pin location, PIN location on Google Maps to somebody? And it'll give you step by step, depending on whether it's an iPhone or an Android. I'm an Android, but I have Apple iPads, so I have all the tech, but depends on what you're doing, I think, as to how it happens. But you can totally do that. Just takes a minute, and hopefully it never matters.
Well, I'd rather leave breadcrumbs and not need them than not leave breadcrumbs and go off the side of a mountain.
I've got some really scary stories, the fiction that are coming up for people who didn't drop any breadcrumbs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you look like such a nice, quiet, calm little lady.
Yeah, I do the state fair, cooking and quilting and photography and all that stuff, and then you just don't know what's going on in that mind, right?
I love that.
The problem. They say, write what you know. Well,
Yes.
what I know since a child is being terrified and haunted. It's like, there you go. So you learn to live with it, deal with it, learn your abilities and strengths and weaknesses, and how to protect yourself, keep them back, which you've been doing doing really well.
Thank you very much.
And but it's just there's a lot of stuff, and then it's like it's not just if you could conquer, like I conquered ghosts. That's terrific. What about all the other entities? What about this?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like even in when I wrote the first book, 2016, 2017, I think I wrote 2016, Shades of Angels. And that was because people just thought the word angels meant good. So they would open themselves up to prayer. All
Lucifer was an angel.
The greatest thereof, right? And so they didn't realize it. And it took me, I tell you, I know you love me, and I love you for loving me, but I'm not always the sharpest tack in the box. Because it took me some time of traveling around the world and listening to people's stories, and I was like, wait a minute. But the Europeans will tell you in a different way, right, than Americans. And so I got it because they, English was not their first language. And I was like, oh, okay, so I really got it because they started talking about old entities and, and I was like, okay. So I realized, ding, the little light bulb comes up, that they just thought angels meant good. They didn't realize there was as many levels of dark angels as there were light angels. So when they were opening themselves up and asked them to come in, and they did, well, that was a mixed bag of tricks, to say the least, because sometimes it was really bad, and sometimes it was great. But it just depended on who showed up first. And it always takes the good, the light, longer to come through than the dark, because the dark is already here. So the light has to come through and sometimes battle its way through. Even if you're not religious, that's a fact. It's just energies. It's just the way the energies are. But if you are religious, you will know that in the Bible, even it talks about people who get frustrated, like, Daniel, like, what took you so long? And the angel was like, buddy,
you see where you are, right?
Yeah, it took weeks for me to battle, from the heavens to get through here and then to get to you. So the door's open now. Why don't you just go walk out and check the attitude at the door? But it really, that's why timing, you can't put anything, so to speak, in just like, well, it's not working, because time is very different and also different in different different levels, of realms and different time, and if you're in a time string theory, quantum physics is something I think that everybody who's interested in the paranormal really should, at least get themselves familiar with quantum physics, because while, that's weirder than you can think, it also helps to understand and explain dimensions and timelines and what time is and isn't, and how come it answers some questions of how come this seems like they don't even know I'm here. Well, because they're living their
Their
timeline
best
and they
life
don't
over
see you.
here.
They don't see
Yeah.
you. How can they not see me? I saw them. Well, they're at so many seconds ahead or behind, and it's just a thing, right? But it's, I think it's interesting. I think it's a good thing for people to,
Well, and for people that think that this is crazy and that they would never be exposed to this,
Mhm.
if you need help grasping it, okay, because I was already studying this, and all of my friends were like, "What are you talking about?" Blah 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 blah, and I was like, "Just read." Well, I went
Mhm.
to see Interstellar,
Oh, that's a good
and
one. Yeah.
I'm just sitting there. Not this is in a theater. I'm so
Yeah.
embarrassed, but I'm in a theater, and at the end of the movie, I'm like, "That's string theory.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is dimensionality." Okay,
That's right.
well,
Yeah.
and I mean, I literally went loud, right? I'm just like, this is all about string theory. And so, needless to say, I did not go to the movies again with the person I was with ever. But it was
No, but
people.
sometimes it is really kind of like, what?
It was
This is it.
Eureka.
It will help you. It will help you
Yes.
understand things because you need to, I
Yeah.
have, and you do too. We have analytical minds and we want answers to things and we love the backstory and we're just like really curious little cats, pardon the pun.
We are.
But like,
Yeah.
the thing is, that's good. Like, because the thing, people are like, well, isn't that bad? Because then you're just discounting everything. I don't discount everything. I do not discount everything.
No.
I have eaten so many crow feathers. I don't discount anything anymore because I used to be like, come on. Then something would happen. I'd be like, well, I'm eating the crow,
There you go. Yeah.
So I'm tired of eating crow. So whatever, anything's possible. But if you look at it and you discount, try to debunk, as they say, a lot of things, because it could be an electrical interference, it can be plumbing, it can be a lot of things. But if you do
Yes.
get all of that out of the way, and then you still have something, to me, if 99% of it can be explained away, but it's that 1%, and that 1% should keep you up at night because that cannot be explained. That's real and that's something,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I would rather have that 1% of like, oh, shite, than like a whole bunch of just random stuff that can be explained away. And you should want to not be haunted or not be disturbed. So you should want to clarify and fix anything you possibly can that won't disrupt you. But there again, sometimes people like the attention. So you have to be
That's
careful when you're
true.
going in and seeing what's happening. And sometimes they ask to see things, they want this or that. That's, some stuff you can't really fix because that's on a certain person's situation. But
Well,
I like
and
to know what it is. But
yeah.
I think that's great that you found that out. It's funny that you found out in the middle of a movie, but
Well, and
it's good. And
it
another one
was
that's a great one for that. Another
what
one that I think takes a good look at it is The Others with
I
Nicole
have not
Kidman.
seen that. I love Nicole
That's
Kidman
your
though.
homework. That's your
I
homework
just read it
tonight or
down.
tomorrow. Yeah, write it down. The Others with Nicole Kidman. It shows you. I'm not going to give it away because a lot of people maybe haven't seen it, but it shows the world of paranormal activity and ghost situations from both sides.
Okay.
Very well done. And gosh, I'm trying to think of
Is
some
it
of the other.
scary?
Well, I think you'll love it. I think it's got some moments, but it's really more of a psychological, like, whoa, pay attention. Like,
Okay.
don't do it and multitask. Like, watch the movie.
Okay.
Because there's so many little subtle things that you're going to be mad at yourself, like, oh my gosh, why didn't I pick up? You're going to watch it again. So just watch it.
Okay.
And it's really interesting the way they unfold. They did a good job of that. And there's another movie, and I just am not thinking of what it is. That's terrible because I did a lecture on it, but it really did a good job. I have to think about that. Did a good job of showing how people can get sometimes in trouble when they are astral traveling, or when
That's why I don't do it.
spirits are trying to walk in,
Yeah.
so there's as many, like I said, as many things as you conquer. There's a whole laundry list of things that, like, well, what about this and what about that and what about that? There's just a lot to know and learn. It's one of those things that's never going to really end, as far as you're
It's
learning.
not.
Yeah.
And, what gets me, and you've been following this path too, but you've got more experience with it than I do. But what gets me is when you are walking along, going down your little path, doing your little thing,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you think you've got a grasp. And then over here it goes, whoa, hello.
Uh-huh.
You're not
Right.
through with your research. You have to study this now.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I mean, and
it's,
it's things, it's like it just keeps expanding your mind and your knowledge and your own soul's evolution of things. And, there is, I think, pretty much always a reason, unless you're living, you need to live very intentionally, but unless you're very random in, like, the way you live your life, there should be some reason to teach you some of this, or to open up, because some of it is as either unnerving as it can be, or downright scary, or just confusing. It's something in it that's going to help you somehow, or help you help somebody else, or maybe understand them in a different way that you wouldn't have.
well, I had some of that a couple of different times, not in the far past. And I'm always amazed by the things that you think you have a grasp on,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need to call Teal. And there have been what 3 or 4 times
Yeah,
that
but
were not just
it was stuff that you couldn't have, and there was no reason you should have had experience with. So don't feel bad about that.
well, I'm just glad that you didn't just pish posh me, you know, that
But
you were
I ate
just like,
some crow to do that through the years. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Sometimes, because some things are just like, what? For an
yeah,
example, because I know people may be listening and go, well, so what's give us one example. So here's an example. I had somebody tell me that it sounded like they thought that something evil came into the house or passed through the house when they had a death in the family. The woman was amazing and sweet and kind. It wasn't her, but just they thought something passed through or opened up something or whatever. They were having problems. They were scared. And they said it sounded like somebody took a truckload of boulders and threw it on the roof, and it was just all of this stuff and this growling, whatever. And I was like, but it was a lot. They had that, and then there was more things. It was like so many things. And I was like, that's almost like 2 or 3 bad movies put together, right? Like, it was like, I don't know. And then I thought, they're so distraught. Maybe they're having, issues just with grief or whatever. It was no time. It was no time. It was the middle of the day, bright, sunshiny, beautiful day. I was in the front house dining room. I was writing, because at the time I was working with a group of teenagers at a church, teaching them how to write their own videos and make them, and help them with with the drama team, right? And so I was making notes and doing stuff. It was right in my face, just all this, and I had nothing scary, hadn't been doing anything, nothing at all, working on church stuff, and it was right in my face. You could feel the breath of it. And it was just like hissing and breathing and growling. I mean, it's obviously, a demon. And I say obviously only because I have had experience, 5 other times in my life, which is plenty, to know what it was. It wasn't just a ghost. It wasn't Aunt Tilly with bad heartburn. It was not. It was something very dark. And at the same time, it's it sounded like big, huge boulders to the point. I mean, if it really was what it sounded like, they would have come through the roof, even as sturdy as house as this is. And I was like, is it a plane? Here's how rational my mind is. Something's growling, snarling at me, and I hear that, and I'm like, is it a plane crash? Are parts falling? And so I look outside, I go out the front door, and it's silent. Birds chirping, traffic going by. There's nothing. You go back in the
Whoa.
house, and it feels very cold, very different, and you can still hear all of this commotion going on. You go outside. I did this several times. You go outside, look up on the roof. There is nothing near the roof, and there's no sound. But you go back in the house, you're having the phenomenon, right? So it's an auditory phenomenon. It's a physical phenomenon. And, all of these things happening. So I was like, well, here's the crow I'm going to eat tonight. I mean, you do. So like that experience was to teach me that sometimes, even though something seems fantastical because it goes from shadows to, and then I heard this, and then I did this, and then this happened, and that moved, and then the boulders, sometimes you're like, that's a lot. But yes, sometimes it is a lot. And so that they will teach me. And sometimes, but there have been more than just other times that people really, I needed to understand that,
Well, what did you ascertain that was?
Well, I felt like it was something dark and demonic that growled at me and brought that phenomenon. Because if you talk to other people who are very versed in that, whether biblically or just in the world, that is a common denominator for those situations. And it was in the front house, it was in the dining room, but in the back rooms, there was another time. And they told me they were going to teach me. They were going to teach me because I was scoffing at people who were like, it just overtook me. Or, it happened so quick. I didn't know it could overtake me. And I was thinking, well, wouldn't you know? Or I was just a little skeptical of something, right? And so, bright sunny day. The worst things happen to me, bright sunny afternoons or, late mornings, definitely not asleep, up and down. And I looked out this one set of windows in one of the back rooms, and I have all these pear trees out there. And so it was winter, and the reason I was looking is because we don't have terrible, it was in Texas, North Texas, but we had that year really, really bad freezing and ice. And to the point that it lasted so long, I was like, I think even though these trees are good sized trees, I don't know if they're going to survive this, So I'm looking, thinking that. And then all of a sudden, there's this it's actually very seductive, very kind of sexy, raspy voice, but it's telling me that, and it was before, I started praying, but before I could even call out to God or Jesus, it was like, and it's like, I'm going to show you, and it already had control of me. I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to hurt you, and I'm not going to do anything to you, but I'm going to show you and teach you what you're scoffing at, because you don't think we can do what we can do, and how easy it is with your feeble human minds to make you see things that aren't there. And so I'm thinking, what? And they're like, look outside, look again. And I'm thinking, look again. And then they're like, trying to look again. So I look out the window again, and it's beautiful. Fall, it's warm, it's sunshiny, all the green grass. There's a few, not even leaves turning, because for me, my pears and stuff, the leaves are still green here in Texas when they're ripe, Yeah. And but there was so many pears, and so many pears, they're just covering, areas of the ground underneath, not rotten, but just beautiful. My mind's like, oh my gosh, immediately, where am I going to get enough baskets? I'm going to have to call everybody I know to get baskets, to get all of these pears, and then you gotta do something with them. You gotta, can them or something. These I've never had, a harvest like this. I was just so like, wow, such a beautiful scene. And then they laugh, which snaps you out of what you're looking at, this really demonic laugh. And it does sound like human, animal / like 1,000 oceans rushing. It's a weird situation. And they're laughing and they're like, this is a good lesson for you. Look again. And I look again, and it's what it was, all frozen, dead, that kind of thing. And the tree that they kept having me look at actually was the only one that did die. So that was kind of interesting.
Really? That is interesting.
Only one that died. Only one that died. And and then they left me as quick as they were on me. They were gone. Just
quick object lesson.
Crow. I don't want any more of that kind of crow. That's a dark crow. But
it was beneficial to you.
It was beneficial to me. They didn't hurt me, but they taught me a lesson. I haven't forgot how easy it is for people. And then I thought, you know what, even in a subtle way, because that was one thing I didn't remember until I really played again, because I was kind of in shock about it, is subtly, there have been times, I'm sure you and a lot of people we know and a lot of people listening, everything's fine. You're getting along fine with your partner or friend or whatever, a family member. Everything's great. Everything's good. And then you come into a space, or say you come back home from having a great night out, and then all of a sudden you're getting these little nippy at each other, or your energy changes, and it heightens this energy, which is what they feed on. And you fight, and then you start thinking, I start thinking, wow, okay. So that's even in a subtle way, the way they use you, manipulate you, and feed off you is to cause the bickering and the fighting, right? And also elation. They apparently, that's what they told me, they also show up at concerts because there's so much energy and everyth's so up and powerful.
I would vouch for that.
They feed on that, right? And
I worked in a venue for years
because they have to feed on the energy.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. It's just interesting. So if you study energy, which we're made up of, energy, and we're made up of a lot of water. We're made up of a lot of elements of the stars. So really, you really are. Everybody really is a star, and to a certain degree. But if you do put the science to it, I think you have a better experience with the paranormal. Even if you're like, if you're listening, you're like, thanks a lot, Teal. Don't care what you say. I'm into the paranormal. I'm not into science, and that's all fine and good. But I'm telling you, you really will experience it in a different way and understand it differently if you understand, even what your physical makeup is and how you're affected by, just like the water, the oceans are affected, the tides and everything else, by the moon and by, its phase, like a full moon, the thing everybody says, oh my gosh, hospitals, police, nurses, doctors, policemen are always like, oh, it's a full moon.
And there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that. So just you don't have to, go about it like I'm going to turn into some science person. But just to understand some of it, just even the way energy works, there's a pretty good book called Frequency. I have it, but I can't remember the authors, but it talks about energy and how it moves and transfers. One thing, if I can say real quick, I don't know how much time we got left.
We got 30 minutes. You're okay.
Okay. If I can just say real quick, one analogy that people who can't even agree with the concept of reincarnation, because they're like, they just can't place it, right? So one thing I came up with, I think I put it in Shades of Angels, is think of it like steam powers a train, right? It's just water until it hits 212 degrees. Then it's so powerful, it can move a train, right?
Yep.
So if you think of that, water, steam kind of thing, and the power in that, and the energy in that, well, we have an energetic soul in a body. And if you think about ice, Well, ice is one form you can understand. You put it in your glass, you got ice. But ice melts, turns into water. If you heat it, well, it's then that steam, and the steam is a vapor, which you can think of as the spirit or the soul. Some people say they've seen that move out.
Yeah.
But if you were able to somehow cap that or trap that, that steam would then gain little water droplets, and you keep trapping it, you got water again. Well, if you get that in a cold state, it's going to freeze and be ice again. So
Yes.
that's a way to understand, maybe using a physical situation, a physical item, of how something could reincarnate. Does that make sense?
That does make sense because, through the dissipation, the blah, blah,
Dissipation.
dissipation,
Yeah.
and then the evaporation,
Yeah.
and then you have
It
dissipation.
recycles.
The
It recycles, because even if you're like, well, that doesn't mean anything. Like, what about the train that shoots out the mist? Well, in the clouds, it's going to go. It goes up. Everything works in its own way, and
but it's
rain
still
comes
cyclic.
down, and it's all a cycle.
Yes,
Rain's a
because you have
cycle.
the
Humidity,
dissipation and everything. Yes,
precipitation, or just just the humidity in the air. It's same thing.
yeah,
Same thing.
that's actually pretty fascinating because I don't get all of the cycles, but
Yeah.
when I have been in different locations, there's you can feel cycles. Like
Yeah.
there are times
Like
that
layers, like timelines, and yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and I was at oh, what is the name of that place? It's in West Virginia. It was a school, in an asylum kind of a thing.
Mm. Those hold a lot of energy.
They do, and you know, in my own town, the hospital where I was born and went to pediatrician appointments and did all these other things. Turns out that my son-in-law's dad was one of the primary doctors there also, and he would have been my peer. But
Okay.
you know, I mean, there's a lot of ties to this place. And when I investigated there, we had a chance to go in. It's being torn down, but the energy in there was so astounding because the computers were still there, the beds were still made,
Oh my God.
the files were still there. They had a barometric chamber that was still there. The computers that were the size of a Volvo were still there. There were,
Yeah.
I mean, everything was still there. And it looked like people had just left, and that was the end of that, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, and I got a lot of activity there.
I could
Which,
imagine. I could imagine you would.
and so that place was really cyclic for me
Mm-hmm.
because, I got a shadow figure that melted away from me.
Well.
I caught it on camera,
Mm-hmm.
and that's still to date my favorite piece of evidence. But,
Yeah.
you know, but mainly I was feeling that.
Yeah.
And,
And
but
that's
that,
part of that you've come along. I really am. I know I've said it several times, but I really am proud of you, because that comes, you're really gauging and learning your discernment of energies and what it is, and feeling the layers of that. And that's really great.
well, you would love I was just in Cherokee with David,
Mm-hmm.
and he made his first appearance on the show earlier, too.
Oh, okay.
But his first time ever. But I was just by myself and I was out, adventuring. And because I do that, but I do it in crowds. I don't just do myself.
Yeah.
And so there was, I just looked and it was like, oh, look, there's the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Here I
And
go.
I did. And yeah, I did about a mile in and a mile back out because, wildcats, I didn't have any kind of bear spray. I didn't have anything. So I
Mm-mm.
was not planning to do that.
Yeah.
So, it was very nice to be able to get to. But
Hmm.
the energy down through there, you could feel the animals. You could feel the
Yeah.
you could feel the trees.
Hmm.
And I am
Oh,
not
trees, aren't they just amazing? I
you
mean,
don't even
really.
have to touch them, but if you could have seen
Mm-mm.
these roots, Teal, I
Mm.
mean, they were it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I love the sensation because it started to rain,
Oh, yeah.
and fortunately, I was prepared. But I learned in Scotland, don't leave without your raincoat.
Right.
But it was just so. It was just a miracle day, energetically speaking. You know,
Hmm.
it started out sunny. It was gorgeous. It started getting cloudy. Things were cooling, and then the rain and the trees were just like,
Beautiful.
boy, we needed this, and you could feel all
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
know, and if I could feel that there, imagine in a place that had a lot of different types of things happen, like that hospital,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
energy
You've
signatures
got
are still
joy and
there.
jubilation and deep sorrow. You got it all, the gamut of everything,
Yeah,
whether that's somebody that's so joyous for a birth, somebody who's so sad for a death, somebody
yeah,
who's there and terrified of a diagnosis. I mean, and treatments. There, you've got it all right
you
there.
do. And, there's a little hospital up in Tennessee that's is famous as a haunted location, but it was the only game in town for a long time.
Hmm.
And at one point, there had been a mine explosion. Um,
Um,
an ex family member was had just come up out of the mines
mhm.
and had just gotten to the house when this explosion happened, and it was terrible. So,
That would be so scary.
and it was a
Working in the
small,
mine.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right? I couldn't do it,
Mm.
but it was those people, the ones that they got out, had to go somewhere, and this would have been the closest place
Yeah.
to what happened,
To go
and
in. Yeah. To have
so
all that fear and everything rushing into that house.
and I've never really thought about that. I've investigated there several times, and I get a lot of different things, but I get the most random and interesting EVPs there,
Hmm.
and I think that to me it's Old South Pittsburgh Hospital,
Hmm.
and they have a new owner that's taken such good care of that since the first
That's
time I
good.
was there,
That's
which
good.
was scary because I thought that there were probably still diseases on the counters,
Well,
you know,
sure. I mean,
but
yeah, yeah,
um, it was yeah, things like that. It's not. That's why I like jails too, but I love hospitals
yeah. But
because
you going back like that too and keeping notes, I think that's so important because then what you say is, you get random EVPs, but if you look back and you can go through all these notes and look at what time of day was it, what was the weather like, what was going on, what section were you in, and
yeah,
see if you are getting something that's tied to make
that
sense to a certain place or whatever.
right. So I want to talk about because I'm very excited that you're doing this event. Okay,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that what a you educate so beautifully through your books,
Oh, thank you.
and just so you know, I'm still doing my journaling with your book.
Oh,
But
great.
I love that.
Great.
But
Oh, appreciate that.
well, it makes a difference in my world. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
But this is a step out. This is a big,
Yeah,
big
because I usually
location
am
that
the
you're
one that other
investigating.
people bring in, right? They bring
Yes.
me in. And I've done some events for other places and people, where I would bring a team in, bring different people together to do something or doing a big event and kind of thing, bring vendors and stuff. But I put together a team
Yeah.
and they're called Parahunters. And it's some really great people. Each
There are some
person
great
in their
people.
own right could do their own events, right? These are really heavy hitters in the paranormal field. And they all bring different gifts. They've all got different stuff. But, you've got Susan Hill, Jamie Mose,
Love Jamie
Mark,
Mose.
yeah, Mark Foltz.
Yes.
You got Kirby Debris, who I think you probably know Kirby.
I don't yet.
Um, you don't, okay, well, Martha Hazard Decker and
Yes.
Tui Snyder, Jeannie Van Hoos,
Yes.
got Bella and her mother Layla Oliveri, and also have Q and Morgan, who are videographers and photographers, and have investigated some really cool places and gotten some really good stuff.
Oh,
So they're
wow.
paranormal. Everybody's their paranormal investigator, but they have a lot of other talents, whether it's videography, photography, or their own psychic abilities, or tech abilities within these paranormal realms. And so I've been asked by the city of Denton to do several events. I've got multiple book signings, going on through the now and the end of the year, with Haunted Denton, and then Haunted Weatherford is coming out at the end of September. And of course, Shoe Cat and Pumpkin Pie. We'll talk about that later. But so they've asked me to investigate a 22-acre, I did say that right, 22
Yes.
acres, big cemetery right in the middle of town. And it's called IOOF Cemetery. A lot of people don't know what that says or means. They misread the sign a lot of times and think it's 100F. And they're like, does that mean it's 100 acres? Does that mean, like, what does that mean? But it's the International Order of Oddfellows. And that's a fraternal organization that started actually in England, and it started in 1748. And then it came over here in Maryland in 1819, made its way to Texas as a chapter in 1859. And
Took it a little while then.
yeah, and then they later made an addition to that in 1851 here, called the Rebeccas for the women,
Oh,
so that
okay.
they had that. And so this cemetery is a really old cemetery. A lot of pioneers, founding people have been there. It's old, it's big. And
200 acres is off the chain.
well, this one's 22. This one's 22 acres.
Okay.
And but that's huge, for that, and it's right in the center of town. But so
Really?
the team, I'm going to have the team broken up, and positioned throughout the 22 acres. And we're going to showcase, we're going to do paranormal investigation of it, because there's a lot of activity through the years. That's why I put it in Haunted Denton.
Sure.
Is, people they hear a crying baby, and people hear it from a certain location. And actually that location is the burial of the first infant ever buried there. And so, that's interesting. They see a woman in a red jacket often, in a certain area of the cemetery. You've got people who see different era of soldiers, like veterans. But it makes sense if you look at the history of it, because all the way back to Texas Revolution wars, all the way up through World War One, World War Two, Civil War, all these people, they're all buried there. And you've got I think sadly a large number of infants and children are buried there. It's just a pretty fascinating place, and beautiful. Some very beautiful statues are there, the angels.
I love
and
cemetery
everything.
statuary.
They're just gorgeous. So I think it'll be a great investigation. We've got some of the best people going that are going to be out there and using different things, whether that's divining rods or tech equipment or their own abilities. I've got a lot of equipment that people can use and hold, like pay 2 meters, different things like that. and just kind of get a feel for what they're doing.
So
Everybody's
this will
going to
be
be
good
there.
for a first timer.
It would be great. Yeah. Or even the most experienced. They're welcome to bring their own equipment, you know. So it's going to happen in Denton, Texas, at IOOF Cemetery. And it's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. on October 13th. So coming up pretty quick. And so anyone under 18 must be with a parent or guardian. It's really not, it's for adults, you know, but we're not going to exclude families who have, you know, younger kids with them, but they must have the adults with them. You can't just show up as a teenager under 18 and get in. That's not going to work.
Right.
And it's for everybody's own safety, you know. So parents must accompany anybody under 18. Then on the 20th, we're going to have a rare opportunity to investigate the Emily Fowler Library. And that's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. on October 20th in Denton. And we're going to see what's going on in there. They've had sightings of children. They've had sightings of, actually, people believe Emily Fowler. It looked like her. It's just going to be really interesting. And for that, again, you have to be 13 years or older to go inside and do the investigation, because there are stairs. It's going to be dark. You would still have to have a parent with you, anybody under 18. But for those families who maybe a parent is going to go inside with somebody who's, say, 13, 15 something, but other people in the family are there and don't want to leave, outside, we're going to have a big projector screen and be projecting what's going on inside, outside.
How fun.
So even if you're outside and waiting for your rotation to come in, or you're too young to come in, then you'll be able to see what's going on inside and be part of that. And also, there's been several spirits seen outside the library. So they're welcome to have their equipment out there and check that out. And at both locations, I know you've heard of the North Texas and there's other factions of it, but of the Ghostbusters who come in with the Ghostbuster car and everything. So they're going to be there as well. And they're going to bring their cars and their equipment and everything. So they'll be there to help keep the ghosts in line at the cemetery and also at the library. So it ought to be a lot of fun.
I always loved getting to meet Ghostbuster crews.
They're
because
great. They're really
they are great.
Yeah, and they put so much time and effort into everything, and they bring just a really cool factor to it. So,
well, their energy, fun. Because they're so excited to be doing that.
Yeah,
and
they love
to me, that's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love anybody that gets into that.
Cosplay, you know, people love that, but it brings a cool, fun factor to it. But they're going to be there as well. So, yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it, and what a great team! How lucky am I?
You've got seriously. I know all of those people.
Yeah,
and if not face to face, then by reputation and having been at events that they were at, and I've interviewed several.
Yeah,
and I'm going to tell you, I absolutely love Jamie Mose.
She is so great, and she's had a lot of experience. And you talk about travel. That woman never sits on the couch a day. I don't think
she don't is think everywhere.
So either. But it's really great because you get people like that who are versed in every kind of encounter and have been in buildings, homes all around the world. So that's a great thing. And then Susan, same thing. She's a great investigator, but also a great folklorist. So, some of the urban legends, she can tap into that. That's always great. And Tui Snyder, I tell you what, she always picks up the ghost children, right? And every time she would come to my office after having been at the cemetery or something, I'd be like, Tui, you got a little trail of ghosts with you, little kids, oh, what do you want to do? And so there's a lot of kids out there. So I'm anxious to see if she has her little tribe of children join her out there. But yeah, everybody is really, really great. That's gonna be on there, and so yeah, it'll be really good. And we're gonna have a couple of people who have their own team, RIP, and that's gonna be Greg Stevens and his son Brandon. They're gonna come and join us for that night and at the library as well. And they have many years of expertise at this and are really great at it. So I'm excited to have them join us and help us out there on this big acreage of land. And so that'll be great.
Well, the best thing about having such a large group of experienced investigators
Mhm.
is that no matter what area someone is in, they're going to be able to just grab somebody and say, "Hey, I think this just happened. Can you help
Yeah,
me understand this?"
yeah,
Or I'm feeling a little bit creeped out. Can you tell me
right.
if there's anything changing with the EMF here? Or, you know,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah, I
basic
think it'll be a
things.
fun night for everybody. I mean, and you've got to think now, it's daylight till very late, almost 9 o'clock. Well, but come mid-October, it's going to be pitch dark by 5:30.
Yeah.
So 6 to 9, you're in the dark. I'm going to have, of course, it's going to be safe out there for you with some lighting, but it's still going to be a kind of a spooky experience.
Well, cemeteries in the dark are spooky
Yes.
experiences.
Yeah, they are.
Sometimes cemeteries in the daylight are
Oh,
spooky
yeah, sometimes,
experiences.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
it'll be, you could catch orbs. I mean, I encourage everybody to not just use equipment and not just your eyes, but take some photos.
mhm.
Use your video cameras. You never know what you're going to catch that you don't always see or hear. Use your tape recorders. And you don't have to have expensive equipment. Just
I use
any
my
kind of
cell phone a
recorder.
lot.
I was just about to say they can just
Yeah.
use their phone. There's apps for your phone. Come out, have a good time, see if you catch
Well, you
anything.
don't even really need apps because this has all of the all of the equipment that you could hope to
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
It has
Night
thermometers.
vision.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's just you can't beat it. And
No, and
I never thought that
for recording and
voice
just
record.
taking
I've
such
got so
great.
much on the voice recorders.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And it's just, I think it's a lot of fun. It'll be fun and it'll be
yes.
interesting. I don't know what it is about spirits and libraries. Maybe they just like to keep learning, but you get that. And some people feel like there's also bigger energies like angels. And if you remember the City of Angels, they would meet at
Yes.
the library. And of
Yes.
course, in Ghostbusters, the librarian was still at work there telling people, shh. Well,
Yeah.
listen, they have caught, there was a paranormal team that
No.
came in many years ago, and because this was way back, and they caught on EVP of somebody going shh, so like a librarian.
Oh, I
So
love
there's a lot
that.
of different stuff that has happened there, and so it'll be really interesting just to see what we pick up.
Well, I can't wait to hear about it.
Thank
So,
you.
I am so proud of
I
you
keep
and
you
all the things
posted.
that you're doing. You do that
Well, thank
because,
you so much. Appreciate it.
and I'm going to tell
Um,
you that that group of people is going to be so much fun.
it's going to be great fun. It's going to be great fun. If there's anything to be found out there that wants to be found, they're going to find it.
They will.
Yeah.
And if you've got Mark out there, even something that doesn't want to be found is going to be
That we're going
found.
to have him. I'm going to have him on Zoom. He's going to be zooming in, and I will take him around and carry him to different points. And then I'll also have him stationary, and so he can be reading. People can hear that at the tables, and
Yes.
so we'll have Mark out there in his bilocating spirit.
I tell you what, that is a guy that can do that. All of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm I am
Yeah.
so I'm
And we'll
so
have to
happy.
capture you. You'll have to be you don't have time to be a member, but you could be an honorary member and come out sometime and help us on an investigation. It'd be fun.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
Totally.
that'd be
But
good.
well, so I'm stunned that we're almost out of time.
It goes
Stunned.
quickly with us.
It does.
Mhm.
But so we've got the she cat
Oh yeah.
and
Well, Shoe Cat and Pumpkin Pie. Just to give you a quick little synopsis of them, Shoe Cat doesn't want to be a shoe cat. He's a black cat, but he's got a little orange on his tummy. Kind of looks like a pumpkin, but he's always getting shooed away, and he never gets to tell people, "I'm not a black cat. I'm not unlucky." And he just wants to be a lap cat. And then you've got Pumpkin Pie, who's not as perfectly shaped and not as big and beautiful as what everybody says. Oh, they come to the pumpkin patch and say, that's a designer pumpkin. Oh, look at that thing. That's just going to be a pumpkin pie. She don't want to be a pumpkin pie,
Oh,
and he doesn't want to be a shoe cat. They want to be a decorator pumpkin and a lap cat.
yeah.
So they go through a lot of different things, and then ultimately, the story comes around and they both find a home where they can be celebrated and happy, and they don't get called names that hurts their feelings. They're now celebrated, and they get to be a lap cat and a decorated pumpkin. So it all turns out okay. It has a lot of mishaps along the way, but it all is okay.
Well, I'm getting that for my grandchildren because that's too cute.
Yeah, I hope they like it. And I'm also doing all of the artwork too. That's all my work.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah.
And guys, you can find her on Amazon. She's got more books than Shinola. She's got all kinds of stuff. But if you go and look at her author page, make sure you check out the cover of Shoe Cat and Pumpkin Pie because that cover is precious.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
I can't wait to have it in hand so that that's going to be little Easter presents for people.
Oh, that's going to be cute. Thanks.
So,
I appreciate that.
But anyway, thank you again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I just love you, Teal.
I love you too. It's always a great time.
It is. So, well, for everyone listening, thank you so much because you're the reason that we get to do these things, and I love it. I love Teal. I love my friend Mark Fultz. I love the people that you have coming out with you. Jamie Mose is one of my favorite interviews ever, and I'm going to have to get her back on because she's so much fun.
Oh my gosh, her and her haunted dolls and everything else.
Everything. Yeah. She just loves everything.
She's got a great energy about her.
Yes. Yes. And it comes through even through a camera. So,
yeah.
But we will be back next week, and Teal will be doing her events, so you can go and check those out. That would be Teal Gray.
Well, worldwide. You can go to Teal Gray Worldwide. You can go to tealgray.com. You can also go parahunters.com. It'll take you right to the Parahunters team. I'm going to be updating all the info on all of those. You can also go to thecityofdenton.com. They're doing 31 days of Halloween, and you can look up the 13th and find the IOOF cemetery investigation, and on the 20th is the library. And then I've got 3 other times that I'm going to be around, more than that, but it's on there for different book signings and lectures.
Well, you just have the best time, girlfriend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Me, you too. And so, everyone, again, thank you so much for being here. Carl did not get into the show tonight, but Carl Everson is back there making everything run smooth and pretty. And just, do you love the imagery? I love the imagery. So, we will see you again. Same cat time, same cat channel. Y'all have a great week, and you know what? Make somebody smile or let somebody make you smile. Just make sure that you're having a great day every day. Take care.